Your room has been messy for weeks now, and somehow it doesn't even bother you anymore. That should scare you a little, because the version of you that used to hate a messy room, the one who couldn't relax with dishes in the sink or clothes on the floor, didn't disappear by choice. Something changed underneath without you ever agreeing to it. From the outside, it looks like laziness. From the inside, it feels like something else entirely. People see a room like that and assume the person doesn't care. Lazy, undisciplined, irresponsible. But ask the person actually standing in it, and you'll usually hear the opposite. I hate it. I want it clean. I just can't seem to start. And that gap between hating something and being unable to fix it is where the real story starts. Here's what's actually going on inside the mind of someone in a messy room, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Your brain runs on something psychologists call executive function. Think of it as your brain's management system, the part that turns "I should hang that" into your arm actually reaching for the hanger. When it's working, it's invisible. You see a shirt on the floor, you pick it up, it's gone. You don't remember doing it 5 minutes later. But that system runs on a battery. And when the battery drops low enough, something breaks that most people never notice breaking. You still know the shirt belongs in the closet. The knowledge doesn't disappear. What disappears is the bridge between knowing and doing. The signal that's supposed to travel from your brain to your hand just stops firing. That's called a task initiation failure. From the outside, it looks exactly like not caring. From the inside, it feels like standing from an open door with your feet nailed to the floor. And here's the trap nobody warns you about. The same exhaustion that makes the room hard to clean is often part of what let the mess build in the first place. You need energy to organize your space, but when that energy is already gone, even a small task can feel disproportionately large. Then the mess creates more to think about, more unfinished things, more reminders of what you haven't done, and the problem starts feeding itself. There's real research behind this, not just a feeling. In a 2010 study, psychologists Darby Saxby and Rena Rapetti had women describe their own homes and found that the women who described their homes as more cluttered and unfinished showed different daily cortisol patterns than the women who described their homes as restorative. Cortisol is one of your body's main stress hormones. Now, this study was correlational. It doesn't prove the clutter itself caused the difference, but it does suggest something worth sitting with. The way we experience our living space may be tied to how stressed and how restored we actually feel. So before we go any further, I want you to hear this clearly because it's the whole point of everything that comes next. A messy home isn't automatically evidence of a character flaw. Sometimes it's information, a visible sign that something else is happening underneath, and that something else isn't the same for everyone. Because a battery doesn't drop for no reason. Something drains it. For some people, it's depression, which doesn't just lower your mood, it lowers activity in the actual part of the brain responsible for initiating movement. You're not choosing stillness. Stillness is choosing you. For others, it's ADHD, or the dopamine system that's supposed to make a task feel worth starting runs underpowered, so the task doesn't register as difficult, it registers as nothing, flat, invisible. A task can be easy to understand and still be genuinely hard to begin. For some, it's grief. Grief isn't a feeling sitting quietly in the background. It's a full-time job your mind is doing, whether you notice it or not. And there's only so much left over for a sock drawer once grief has taken its share. For others, it's chronic stress, the slow kind that keeps the body flooded with cortisol for months, wearing down the exact part of the brain responsible for planning and follow-through. And for some, it's simple illness or exhaustion, the body spending everything it has just getting through the day. Folding a towel doesn't stand a chance against that. Now, none of this means every messy room has a diagnosis behind it. Sometimes people are just busy. Sometimes someone's standards of cleanliness are different from yours. Sometimes life just gets chaotic for a while. But when someone genuinely wants their space to change and keeps feeling unable to begin, calling them lazy misses what's actually happening. And then something even more damaging enters the picture: shame. You'd think shame would motivate someone to clean. If the room makes you feel bad enough, shouldn't you eventually do something about it? But shame doesn't reliably create action. Most of the time, it creates avoidance. Every time you walk past that room, you're not just seeing clothes or dishes. You're seeing a reminder that you haven't done what you think you should have. Eventually, the room stops feeling like a task and starts feeling like a verdict. That's the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt says, I did something I don't like. Shame says, there's something wrong with me. Guilt can push you toward repair. Shame makes you want to hide. And the more you avoid something out of shame, the more time it has to grow. The bigger it gets, the more overwhelming it feels. The more overwhelming it feels, the easier it becomes to avoid again. That's the trap closing on itself. The mess creates shame. The shame creates avoidance. The avoidance lets the mess grow, and the growing mess creates more shame. So when someone says, just clean your room, they're handing out advice that sounds simple but completely misses the barrier. It assumes you have plenty of energy, motivation, and emotional capacity sitting there, ready to use. But what if you don't? What if the problem was never that you don't know how to clean? What if the task just feels too large to begin? That's why the answer isn't a deep clean. It's one object, one shirt, one plate, one piece of trash. Pick it up, put it where it belongs, and let yourself stop there if you need to. This isn't about pretending one shirt fixes anything. It doesn't. The point is shrinking the task down until your brain can actually approach it. You don't need to clean the room. You only need to decide what happens to this one thing in front of you. And once you've done that, you've created something important. Evidence that you can act. That's what makes the next thing feel a little less impossible. You don't have to wait until you feel ready. Sometimes motivation follows the action instead of causing it. And if today all you can manage is standing in the doorway, looking at the room without turning away, that counts too. That's you staying present with it instead of looking away one more time. Because that room was never a measurement of your worth. Think about your phone at 1% battery. It doesn't become a bad phone. It just starts conserving power. The screen dims, background activity slows, only the essentials keep running. A person can look like that from the outside too. Not broken, not incapable, just spending everything they have somewhere you can't see. You are not lazy. You never were. You've been running a system that gave everything it had, and the room around you is simply what that looks like from the outside. So the next time you walk into that room and hear the voice that says, I'm so lazy, pause before you believe it. A messy home is not a failure. It is not a character flaw. It is a signal, a sign that someone's mind has been carrying more than anyone else could see. Say it back to yourself the next time you walk through that door. A messy home is a signal, not a failure or a character flaw. If this explains something you've never had the words for, tell me in the comments what you think your room has been trying to tell you. And if you know someone standing in one of their own right now, send them this. Sometimes the kindest thing you can hand someone isn't advice, it's permission to stop being ashamed long enough to pick up just one thing. Thank you for watching, and subscribe for more videos on psychology, human behavior, and the hidden patterns behind the way we think and feel.